Early in the spring of 2008, the mayor of Denver saw that the recession was coming. He had people that he trusted that were good financial advisors who were sending out warnings. He took them to heart. He instituted a pretty firm hiring freeze at that point. It was months before Governor Ritter acted in a similar way. And in fact, if you'll remember, it was even after that, Ritter was doing things like saying that the reports, the predictions that the economy wasn't going to be as strong as it needed to be. He downplayed those and had to kind of take it back a little bit later on that. So I think that you've seen in the mayor a pretty strong, fiscally responsible type guy. And that's before you start getting into the job creation aspect of this, which I don't know if I've talked too long if someone wants to jump in, but McGinnis wants to say this is about jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, who of the two candidates is better prepared to jump into that issue?
The city of Denver that he's led that has a much higher unemployment rate than the rest of the state, Chuck? Listen, Hickenritter cannot have it both ways. He can't say, I'm against cap and trade, and then trot over to Copenhagen to force an international treaty on cap and trade on the United States with Obama. He can't say, well, I was uncomfortable about the union executive order, and not say that he would absolutely repeal it. That could be repealed with a flick of a pen moments after the inauguration of a new governor. He hasn't told us that. If he's not willing to repeal the property tax increase, the vehicle tax increase, if he's not willing to repeal the Ritter plan to put felons back on the streets, there is no difference between Hickenlooper. He cannot have it both ways. And you're letting him have it both ways.
Let me challenge.
He hasn't had a chance to address all this. This thing has just barely started.
All those are very clear issues that have been debated for months, if not years. If he doesn't have a position on those, why is he running for governor?
Let's talk politics for a second. Now, you're a political hack. You get people elected, and you've been able to do some amazing things by getting Bill Owens elected by just a few thousand votes, and a great senator, Wayne Allard. You know that part of it. So let me ask you the political question. I believe the Republicans' job, Scott McGinnis' job, just got a whole lot tougher. That if you go back a couple weeks, he was sitting in a lot better position. I think politically, Hickenlooper is somebody who is going to be much more dangerous to him than Ritter for a few reasons. You know, people say, well, a liberal mayor is not going to be a good statewide candidate. I would agree with that if a lesser-known city attorney didn't become governor before him. So I don't see that as a stopgap. There's never been a mayor in Denver who has been so successful in passing bond increases and tax increases than Hickenlooper. But he does so with a flair that even the people who hate his policies, including me, I like the guy. I respect the way that he's been able to do this. Here is a guy who's colorful, who is liked, who has that very odd, quirky style that for some reason works for his personality. He seems approachable, and I think people like him. That's why he's dropped out of airplanes to poke a hole in Referendum C. He rode choo-choo trains to give us fast tracks. He walked around
electing a class clown or a governor of Colorado, John. I mean, the fact of the matter is the quirky personality.
Talk to me about the politics. This guy is going to be a much more formidable candidate,
no doubt,
than Ritter.
And this is why. The independents will decide it. And yes, they are breaking Republican in Colorado. I've heard that.
And a year ago, they were breaking Democrat.
However, the thoughtful independent is going to look at a John Hickenlooper and say, the guy is a good business guy. He's business friendly. His administration projects a business friendly alternative. And why wouldn't I be supportive of that? Also someone who has handled his city in a fiscally conservative way that's going to be appealing. Now, we haven't seen what McGinnis is going to do yet.
So
he hasn't said what his plan is.
He's going to do for Colorado what he did for Denver. Higher unemployment rate, a failed school system, higher taxes across the board. I can guarantee you, John, those taxes you were talking about would not have passed statewide. I do not think that the people of Colorado want to pass a series of tax increases like Ritter or Hickenritter imposed on Denver. And I will go back again. He can't just ride around on his scooter plugging parking meters and think he can get elected governor. Having run a campaign for governor, and you mentioned the Owens campaign, governor's campaigns do require specificity in terms of your positions on the issues. That's why Bill Owens won. He ran for 3 reasons: to cut taxes, reform education, improve transportation. That's why he became governor of Colorado. Right now, the only reason I know that Hickenlooper's running, he wants to be governor. That's all I know.
But can't you give the guy some credit? As we all seem to agree, didn't hear you speak up, but I'm just assuming you agree with me because you're a smart guy. That Ritter has not been a very effective administrator. Would you admit that Hickenlooper, in his role as mayor, even if you don't agree with his policies, he's been effective as an administrator for the city and county of Denver?
City and County of Denver is a much different animal from the state of Colorado. I live in the Denver metro area. I live in Jefferson County. I choose not to live in Denver because of the high taxes and because of the fiscal situation in Denver. I'm not going to pay those high taxes, and that's why I don't live there. And being mayor of Denver, even if you're a good administrator, is much different policy-wise than being governor of Colorado. And we're going to find that out.
I looked at several other cities several months ago. The Pew Research Center has also done a survey, and that's what I based a lot of my research on. Many other cities haven't handled the fiscal situation as well as Hickenlooper did. And I talked to the Pew people, and they were impressed by because they didn't study Denver specifically, so I had to kind of fill them in on what was going on here. They were impressed with Hickenlooper's strategy because they knew that the recession and its effects were going to linger, and that many cities were looking for quick, one-time fixes, patches, the kind of things that you saw Ritter putting together. Whereas Hickenlooper found ways to create structural changes. He laid off, or at least eliminated, 176 positions. He had the creative early retirement buyout that he was able to reduce the workforce even more. As everyone knows that follows city governments, employees are your biggest cost. He's consolidated some departments and come up with some other efficiencies that will keep saving money year after year. I think the people that have been critical of Governor Ritter have said that he's relied far more on one-time fixes and on kind of these like behind-the-scenes waivers that monkey around with Tabor in a way that independents that may not appreciate. Whereas whatever you say about Hickenlooper's taxes that he's passed, he has taken to the people and won by a popular vote, as Tabor requires. Well, he backed Rep C, and Rep C passed statewide.
Let him try those tax increases statewide.
Although, take a look at referendum C and D. Let's remember D failed. And in other places around the state, referendum C failed in the western slope by a nearly 2-to-1 margin.
That's a good point.
So it's going to be hard to get.
That's a good point.
Let me ask you about the tax part of this. And the city and county of Denver, since they have general elections in, is it May? I always forget.
May.
They're one of those weird cities that gets to have 2 elections a year because they can have an election in general election day, but then because of their city charter in May, which gave Hickenlooper the opportunity to push for debt increases and tax increases almost twice a year. When we go back and we look at fast tracks, which was Hickenlooper's baby, when we look at ProComp, which was, here he was with Michael Bennett sitting on the stoop of the school with kids around them and saying, do this for the schools. You take a look at the jail that was put forward. You look at referendum C and referendum D. You look at the last time around when he was walking around like Sesame Street carrying a bunch of letters for A through Z or whatever it was on tax increases and debt proposals. He has, and I say this with a lot of respect, as a guy who has been able to be labeled a business-friendly Democrat, no Democratic mayor of Denver has been able to raise taxes and increase debt better and more effectively to sell those things than Hickenlooper. Doesn't that come back to haunt him in an election?
Well, I've thought about that since the term Hickenritter was spawned.
Was spawned, I like that.
Coined, what have you.
Spawned is the right one.
From now on, it's spawned.
I've known Wadhams a lot longer than you have. Spawned is perfect.
I concede that those are things that he's going to have to finesse, that he's going to have to address and talk about. And yet, so far, we've had quite a lot of time with McGinnis as the apparent front runner, and we've heard not a word on what he would actually do to straighten out Colorado's fiscal mess.
One last thing. The other thing that could come back and hit Hickenlooper like a boomerang is fast tracks. You know, if they were wise, if RTD was wise, they would have put it on the ballot last year, would have been destroyed, and then they'd have to be faced with reality. They said, no, let's wait a year because it'll be better. Well, if they put it on the ballot again this year in 2010, this is Hickenlooper's baby, and let me tell you, it's going to get destroyed, and it's not going to be good for the, what is it, about 80% of the voters are in the Denver metro area. You know, we remember that, and Hickenlooper gave us fast tracks.